So thank you all so much for joining us for another exciting week of the Customer Success Skills Exchange. This has been a hotly requested topic. So GitLab Geo, I think it's our #1 upvoted topic. So really excited to dig into this today. So we're so lucky to have Nick and team with us to chat a little bit more about it in depth. So we'll be starting with a Geo overview and then diving into some more technical topics, including HTTP and HTTPS, load balancing, failover, so promoting that secondary node, Geo as a backup strategy, failover, runbook reviews, and installation and upgrading fun. So without further ado, Nick, the stage is yours.
Hey, thanks for having us here. We're excited to talk some more about Geo. I didn't realize it was the #1 upvoted topic. So hopefully we do it justice and answer everyone's questions. So I'm Nick Nguyen, engineering manager for Geo. I'm also joined by Fabian, our product manager. I believe, Mike, one of our staff engineers, is on the call, as well as, see, Gabriel just joined, and Catalin, also a support engineer specializing in Geo, is with us. So plenty of people here to help answer any questions that y'all might have. So I'll just, I know there is probably a varying level of Geo familiarity on this call, so I wanted to do an overview. I wanted to do an overview of Geo real quick, and then dive into some of the more specific technical topics that were brought up in the original planning issue for this, and then we can get into any more Q&A. So I will share my screen. All right. Can everyone see the presentation? Awesome. All right. Okay, so so what is Geo? Geo at its most basic level is a way to provide a read-only secondary GitLab instance of a customer's main GitLab instance. So we use the term Geo primary. That is the main GitLab installation that you can read and write to, and then Geo provides the ability to set up secondary Geo sites. A secondary is a read-only mirror of the primary GitLab instance. There can be multiple secondary sites, but there can only be one primary. You can perform Git operations on the secondaries for increased performance. So if you look at the graphic here, our standard example is you have maybe an office in, say, San Francisco, and then a European office in the Netherlands. And so you have 2 development teams at each of those sites. And so maybe your primary GitLab instance is in San Francisco, but you might have large repos that you want the development team in the Netherlands to have quicker access to. So you can set up a Geo secondary in that office, and operations like Git pulls, browsing the GitLab web UI will be quite a bit faster because of the proximity. So so you can do some operations that might resemble a write on the secondary, but those are proxy to the secondary to the primary. So for example, Git pushes, you can do a Git push to the secondary, and then that will be proxied to the primary. And then another thing to understand about Geo is that it's eventually consistent, meaning that there can be replication lag between the primary and secondary. It's not an active setup, so so they're not always in sync, but the secondary, so the secondary can be a little behind the primary, but if you kind of waited, things would eventually catch up. All right. So what are the primary use cases for Geo? So one is geo replication, the scenario I just described. Maybe you have multiple offices and you want your developers to have increased better performance when using GitLab. So we call that geo replication, and that can reduce the time it takes to fetch and clone repositories and increase developer productivity for distributed teams. The other major use case for Geo is disaster recovery. So for customers that have business continuity needs and fault tolerance needs, Geo can provide a warm standby that customers can fail over to in the event of a disaster. So so that is another key reason why customers choose to go with Geo. A real quick overview of the architecture, and a lot of this is just stuff that I'm pulling from our docs and summarizing, so you can get a lot more in depth in the documentation. Yeah, so if we look here, we have a Geo primary and secondary. We utilize Postgres streaming replication to replicate the entire database of the primary to the secondary node. For customers with that use LDAP, we recommend that there's also a replica of that server on the secondary site. And then for data that's not stored in the main Postgres database, things like attachments, CI artifacts, LFS objects, as well as Git repositories, we use JWT-based authentication to transfer those from the primary to the secondary. And if we look here, there's a geo tracking database that helps the secondary know what needs to be synced, and in terms of these like files and repositories. There's a geo log cursor process that runs on the secondary to facilitate that syncing. If you see here, there's a little line that says FDW. Prior to, someone correct me if I'm wrong, GitLab 13.3, we used foreign data wrappers for cross-database queries between the geo-tracking database and the main Postgres database. As of GitLab 13.3, that has been, the need for foreign data wrappers has been removed. So that's was a really exciting achievement for the Geo team. We still need to update this architecture diagram, but as a result, a lot of, there's been a pretty nice performance improvement in some of these queries, and Geo is also easier to set up and maintain. So just a note there. Yeah, just some limitations and notes about Geo. So one big one is that not all data types are replicated or verified yet. That's one of the big focuses of the Geo team right now, but I think it's important to understand these limitations and so that when talking with customers, we know whether we're replicating everything that they care about. So, so there's this table that you can look at that I've linked to here that we keep updated with all of the possible data types that someone might care about replicating. As new ones are added, we update this table in the documentation, and also try to link to the issue for implementing those so that people can get a sense of when we plan to add replication, because it can be the case sometimes that a new data type is added, but replication won't be supported for a few milestones down the line. Another thing to consider is that initially setting up and doing failovers are a highly manual multi-step process right now. That is another thing that the Geo team is trying to improve. We do support Postgres HA clusters on Geo primaries, but right now doing that on the secondary node is not supported. There are also limitations and risks when it comes to failovers on Postgres clusters on the primary node. If you fail over, the Geo secondary doesn't necessarily know to follow the new leader right away. So those are also some issues we're working through. Selective sync is available as part of the Geo solution, so you can specify a group or a storage shard to replicate on the secondary. This helps with the amount of non-database data that needs to be replicated, but it will still replicate the entire Postgres database. So, so there's currently no solution for only replicating parts of the main database. And then, as I mentioned before, active-active is not supported. It's a warm standby that's eventually consistent. So there's going to be some replication lag between the primary and secondary. And yeah, I want to talk about the Geo Roadmap. This is a very dynamic area in that we're constantly working to improve the Geo solution. So things that may be limitations right now, we hope will not be limitations going forward. Those are things we're working really hard on. So one of those is disaster recovery viable maturity. And this, I believe, is about 80% of the way there. We use epics to track our product, our category maturity, and that epic, I believe, has about 80% of the issues closed out. So one of the big things that we did as part of this was to implement a self-service framework to make it easier for developers, not just in Geo, but outside of the team, to add support for Geo replication to new data types. So we're trying to make progress and make it easier to get that data types table to have a lot more yeses instead of nos. So we implemented the initial self-service framework, and then we've been working on adding new data types such as external MR diffs, working on version Terraform state files. Currently, we're working on replicating snippet repositories. And then after that, as part of disaster recovery complete maturity, we want to add more data types. We want to move some of the existing data types that we replicated over to the self-service framework. We also want to implement verification. Other complete maturity things that we want to do, we want to improve the failover documentation, make them more linear runbook style instructions. We're currently working on a read-only maintenance mode, which isn't available right now. We're also working on being able to support high availability PostgreSQL on Geo secondaries using Patroni. So Postgres 12 is going to be available, it already is available as an opt-in. I think it's going to be the required version in GitLab 14. And along with that, we can, Rep Manager won't is not supported with that. So Patroni is the preferred solution for HA Postgres going forward. And then the other big thing that we're working on for complete maturity is we want to make it a lot easier to promote a secondary, especially for customers with very large reference architectures that have a lot of nodes for all the services. We want to right now they have to go into each of those and manually promote those nodes, and so and update the GitLab RB file and change configuration and reconfigure. And so we want to make that a lot easier. And the way we're doing that is to start with just a single command that will promote a node and then go from there. We also have a lot of UI UX improvements in the works. And after the disaster recovery work, we want to work on things that we would consider as part of geo-replication complete maturity. So one of the big components of that is essentially what we call secondary mimicry, where we're maybe hiding some of those details about the secondary, so that a user who's using say the web UI from a secondary site doesn't get that big message that they're on a read-only instance and can only do read-only operations. We want them to be able to have it be like they're using GitLab on the primary, even if some of the operations that they're doing there are proxied back to the primary. So that's a big component of the complete maturity work that we hope to get to soon. All right, so that was the Geo overview. So now, so I've made some slides for each of these technical topics that were listed out in the issue. Please feel free to jump in with any questions as I'm going through them. So one question that was asked was, is it possible for Geo to communicate via HTTP, or does it have to be HTTPS? Yes, it's possible. It's generally a bad idea because you're going to transfer data between Geo nodes unencrypted. You can certainly do that if you're just setting up a demo instance or something like that, but we definitely recommend for any production Geo deployment that traffic is encrypted. And yeah, there's a link to some setup documentation there on the slide. Load balancing also came up, and yes, it is possible to have multiple secondary nodes behind a single load balancer. Currently, putting a primary behind a Geo node balancer isn't supported. That would require secondaries to be writable. We do have an issue open for it. And you can also provide GitLab users with a single location-aware Git remote URL so that users will automatically use the Geo node nearest to them. So we also have some instructions about how to set that up in the docs. Failover and promoting a secondary node. So yeah, as mentioned, this process involves quite a number of manual steps. And I believe some customers have built their own tooling to automate the process, but we don't currently have an official GitLab automated tool to help do this. One project that has the potential to provide some automation around failover is the GitLab Orchestrator project. If you haven't seen it yet, I definitely encourage you to check it out. It's a project that's that the distribution team is working on and is currently getting ready for an alpha release. So still lots of development ongoing there and not ready for production usage yet, but it's definitely on the roadmap to be able to do things like easily upgrade GitLab deployments on larger reference architectures. It would, I think, being able to mostly automate a failover is on the roadmap as well. I think a user would still have to trigger the failover. It's not on the orchestrator's roadmap to monitor a GitLab installation and maybe know if a failover is needed. We have work in progress to create a command that promotes secondary to primary and to simplify the failover documentation. Right now, it's a little jumpy. You have to look at multiple pages, and so we just merged an MR to add runbook style documentation for single node Geo installations, and now we're working on that style of documentation for a multi-node Geo install. And then finally, I linked to a single node failover demo from January 2020. So it's still pretty current. Doing more of these demos consistently is something that we're discussing. We do regular upgrade demos, and doing more regular demos of failovers and Geo installs is something that we've been discussing. All right, Geo as a backup strategy. Yeah, so this came up. I believe the question was, if you're using Geo, do you still need to take backups of your GitLab installation, or is Geo enough? And so Geo can definitely be part of a backup strategy. It's a warm standby, so if something does go wrong, you can fail over to the secondary, and most, maybe all of the data you care about will be there. But Geo does not replace the need to keep regular backups. So even if Geo replicates everything a customer cares about, Geo follows the primary very closely. And so a potential scenario that where Geo would not be great as a backup strategy is if, say, someone performed an upgrade on the primary of their upgrade of their GitLab version on the primary, and a bug causes tables on the primary to be erased. Well, the secondary can follow pretty quickly behind the primary, and so you would also replicate this change to the secondary. So in that case, your secondary would be in a bad state, and you will have wanted a regular backup of your primary instance. So yeah, definitely part of a backup strategy, but we still recommend keeping regular backups of your of the primary instance. And then of course, there's an attack scenario too, where customer servers are compromised by a third party. All the servers in the same network start encrypting data. This would affect the primary and the secondary. So another situation where you would still want a backup that's independent of your Geo secondary. Something that this wasn't a topic that anyone brought up, but something I wanted to highlight was that the Geo team is happy to review failover runbooks for customers with complex architectures. So recently, two large customers successfully completed disaster recovery tests, and so that was a really nice accomplishment and really great thing to see. It's not oftentimes we don't get to see Geo being used for the purpose that it's been created in the real world. And so this was a great example of that happening, planned failover test and successfully completed. To help prepare, Geo team members and support engineers reviewed the run books to raise any potential concerns. And so, so we just wanted to put it out there that if anyone has customers that are planning a failover to, please open an issue following the Geo support process. We're happy to review these plans. It helps us reduce potential day of issues and helps us improve the product just by providing some more insight about how customers are using Geo. Installation and upgrading. As mentioned, installation can be quite an involved process, and of course gets pretty complex when you're trying to install Geo to mimic a larger reference architecture. One way to that we have to spin up a single node Geo deployment quickly on GCP is our Ansible GitLab Geo playbooks. So definitely recommend that if you ever need to just spin up a quick demo instance. The GitLab orchestrator is also working on being able to spin up different reference architectures, and Geo will be a part of that. So it's currently focusing on GCP, and AWS support will follow. And I think there are a lot of, so those are two ways to quickly deploy Geo. I believe the performance environment builder can also do that, and they're adding support for upgrading Geo. One direction that we want to head to eventually is to have all of these tools to set up Geo converge on a single solution, and GitLab Orchestrator is aiming to be that solution right now, or aiming to be that solution eventually, but right now it only handles certain cases, so there is a need for these different tools, but yeah, we're hoping that that eventually GitLab Orchestrator will be able to handle all of the common deployment scenarios for Geo. I linked to a recent UX showcase that was done about the installation experience. You can see some of the challenges that the customers that we've interviewed have had setting up Geo, and some of the ideas and plans for improving that experience. And then we also do regular upgrade demos. We're actually a little behind. Our most recent demo is from 12.8 to 12.9, and we record these. We're a little behind because we discovered some issues with doing zero downtime upgrades on the Geo setup that we were using. And so we wanted to take a little step back and open up some issues to investigate why that's happening. But the plan is anyways to keep up and do these upgrade demos with each GitLab version that comes out. All right, and then other resources. So yeah, I'll just first of all put in a plug for the Geo Slack channel. We're always happy to help answer questions there. I think our engineers and support team are quite responsive there. And so that is, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out on Slack at the Geo channel. I've also linked to the administrator docs, the development team handbook page, which also has some more information about how best to engage with the Geo team for support. And then our epics roadmap, which is nicely organized by product maturity, and then kind of drills down from there, so you can get a good overview of what we're working on. And I believe that does it for the presentation. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention, and I guess I'll turn it over to see if we have any questions.
We have lots of questions.
Awesome.
Yeah. Sorry to interject. So this is Fabian. I have to cruise and go to another call relatively soon, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to sort of talk about Geo. One of the things that I benefit a lot from, and I think the product benefits from, is getting feedback from you. So if you have customers or prospects or any questions, please ask them in the Geo chat. I think also if there are customer conversations that you would like us to join, reach out. I really, this is not like bothering us or putting extra workload on us. This is one of the like major reasons or major things that allow us to build the product that folks actually want to use. So we really appreciate any feedback and all the questions. I try to answer many of the questions async in the doc. So I hope my words and the words of the team, help, but I unfortunately need to sign off. But you're great. I've had the opportunity to work with many of you already, and thanks so much. I'm signing off.
Thank you.